Hello, my name is Mike Epley. I'm a chief architect and security strategist at Red Hat's North American public sector. I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about how Red Hat is helping to shift FedRAMP compliance to the left and incorporate automation, security automation into our FedRAMP authorization process. A little bit about me, though. I've been at Red Hat about 10 years and in the DoD and intelligence community for most of my career, and seeing a lot of what we're going to be talking about firsthand and some of the benefits that compliance and security automation can help in everyday processes and achieving rapid ATOs. And today, FedRAMP is currently undergoing a lot of adoption and looking at modernization initiatives, and we're looking at how we can help our customers and clients using our products and technologies achieve compliance faster. And I'm going to start today by talking about DevOps. It's the new Agile, and historically, we're focusing on, relieving the friction between developers and operations. DevOps is all about delivering applications faster. And that's why we need, of course, to think about automation. But we created DevOps without really realizing that we needed to think about what we left out, and that is security. So we had to go back in and add security in and give them a seat at the table in that DevOps conversation. Unfortunately, nobody likes to think about security when they're cranking away and building applications or deploying those applications and trying to get those to production. So we need to now think about how we can reduce the friction between not just developers and operations, but also all three parties, including security, always in the mix there. But of course, in the federal government, and especially in FedRAMP, which is all about securing and providing our applications and systems in a particular highly regulated environment, security often has primacy. And we're going to try and shift that left and promote security and get that done fast so we can leave DevOps to do their thing. But of course, it's not just security. We also have to think about compliance as well, because in the federal government and in highly regulated industries especially, that's not just being able to secure things, but we have to be able to prove it and prove to accreditors and prove it to our system owners that our systems are in fact secure. So it takes more than just actually implementing that security, but it takes providing that compliance guarantees that we're actually doing that. But this is, of course, important to automate because we can't disturb our developers and our operations folks, right? Because if there's one constant for developers and operations alike is they don't like security. And we need to get security out of the way so that they can focus on tightening up that development. Get back to the original purpose of DevOps, which is to rapidly iterate and get our applications into production faster so we can get feedback and continuously improve. Of course, it's not just helping our DevOps, right? It's also taking advantage of modern security practices as well, like zero trust, for example. Zero trust says we don't trust anyone, and that means as security folks and compliance folks, we're not going to trust our developers. We're not going to trust our operations. We're going to instead insist on verifying what they're doing before we let them modify or touch or manipulate our system and our enterprise resources. And we want to make sure they're not going to be able to do any damage or introduce any other security vulnerabilities into our systems or our enterprise. And it's not just, of course, security and zero trust principles, but there's a lot of other constants that we have to think about. And that is, how are we going to build our systems to manage change? Because security is going to require developers and operations to hold tight to, what the system is as it was designed, and as it changes over time, we have to, as security folks, understand and track and change what those changes are, so that we can adapt our security concepts, our security hardening to that and to those changes. So as developers and operations are constantly iterating on their systems, security has to stay on top of that. And then in a hybrid world, security and compliance is far easier if we have a lot of consistency. So as we are expanding our environments to multiple clouds, multiple infrastructures, or multiple deployments, we have to make sure we have mechanisms to keep our developers and operations from providing a lot of drift across those environments, and prevent attackers that might try to exploit our systems from taking advantage of differences between those systems to escalate privileges as they hop from one system to another or one environment to another. So it becomes especially important in these hybrid cases and hybrid cloud environments to provide continuous compliance. Of course, how are we going to do this? The method, these days that the world mostly turns to when we're talking about automating these things is what I call stars code, compliant. And in this case, we're going to try and convert everything to code and everything to a service. And this should already be a concept familiar to folks that are looking to use FedRAMP or FedRAMP services. And that is, FedRAMP itself is trying to provide services and reusable services to consumers. And they're going to do so using the same process that the rest of the IT world has used to achieve the same results. And in the compliance space, that splat is just ComplianceAsCode or compliance as a service. So we're going to apply that exact same strategy to this particular realm. And the whole goal here is to eliminate that burden and automate compliance for the purposes of DevOps, make our developers and our systems and security be independent of kind of the goals and methods that the DevOps folks are going to be using. Now, if we take a deeper dive into what it means to implement compliance, to get a FedRAMP authorization or pretty much authorization anywhere within the federal government for your production systems, there's a lot of different pieces that you have to build out in order to do that. So if we're going to talk about, implementing these things as code or as a service and automating all the compliance pieces that we need to build, we need to look at the full spectrum of pieces that go into that compliance process, all the way from building out your concept of operations to your system architectures, to collecting that body of evidence against a realized system so that you can prove to those assessors that you've actually done what you said you're going to do in that system architecture. And then instrument your entire system so you can conduct the operations analysis of that system and continuously verify that you're actually in practice achieving those compliance goals. Now, recently, NIST has launched a new project called OSCAL, and OSCAL helps you automate these tasks that you have to do to get your compliance. Now, this is a standard which is actually being adopted now by the FedRAMP program to help automate the compliance and assessment of their systems. So OSCAL allows you to build the compliance tools that you need, system architectures or body of evidence, and construct your SSP so you can get your system in production. And FedRAMP, as it's moving to automation, is going to start requiring you as a system provider or service provider in the FedRAMP ecosystem to deliver your SSP and your compliance artifacts via OSCAL. So we're taking a closer look at what OSCAL is and what it does for you. But the most important thing is OSCAL itself is a very flexible framework. It provides a standard for providing these artifacts in a reusable form. So things like your component breakdown for your system architecture allows you to enumerate all those components, what they do, what sort of security controls they provide for your system, and then lets you reuse these artifacts from other SSPs or other systems by referencing or importing those artifacts from other systems. And so in a FedRAMP scenario where we have different service tiers, infrastructure service or platform service or software service, that allows us to import other services or other layers within our architecture into our SSP so that we don't have to reinvent that wheel every time we build a new system or a new FedRAMP service. Instead, we can re-import and reproduce a new SSP based on composing those existing pieces. And this applies not just for other FedRAMP services, but other components or other systems that have already gone through the compliance process. And so OSCAL is going to help us do this once. So we don't have to continuously redo this, and it helps speed up that automation process. Of course, here at Red Hat, we are building tools today to help you build that OSCAL and those SSPs. So we have a tool out there right now called ATO Pathways that Red Hat uses to build OSCAL content for your systems, already tailored to the needs of your FedRAMP services. If you take a look at ATO Pathways, for example, we already publish for a number of our products and technologies a FedRAMP framework built in OSCAL so that you can import that directly into your SSPs, see our implemented security controls, and use those directly. ATO Pathways also allows you to customize the backend and tailor security controls to your particular service, and it allows you to implement those services or that content using your own templates And we actually provide and consume the GSA templates for that purpose. Now, a second ago, I mentioned security controls. So security compliance is, of course, a complex process. It's a multi-step process for everyone. Our goal with OSCAL is to make it code and to make it so that you only have to do that once. You can build out that SSP and that OSCAL content and then reuse it and consume it as you need it. Of course, the security compliance, like I said, is a complex process. If you actually look at how NIST breaks down security compliance, the ATO process, there's a lot of different pieces to this. And again, we're going to try and make that easy to customize to the FedRAMP needs. And ComplianceAsCode is going to be our tool for doing that. So for your FedRAMP security controls and the security control and profiles that FedRAMP requires, we're going to let you tailor that using our tool, ComplianceAsCode, for that process, and allow you to provide custom profiles for infrastructure or software service as needed. And this is part of a larger Red Hat automation framework that allows us to create automation tools for the entire process, all those different parts of the compliance process that you're going to need. ATO pathways is the starting point, driven by the security controls and automation we build in as a vendor for products, technologies, and ComplianceAsCode, which then allows you to generate those ATO and SSP artifacts from the system. And ComplianceAsCode process itself is open source. It's an open source community where not just Red Hat, but other vendors and other contributors work to build out security compliance baselines against not just FedRAMP, but other security baselines, PCI or DISA STIGs or CIS, for example, all as part of a standard framework, which then we can compile using the tooling available in ComplianceAsCode to generate what we call an SCAP source data stream. And this source data stream encapsulates all the information we need so that we can apply what we've done now in ComplianceAsCode and ATO pathways to our system so we can automate the application of those security controls and therefore get to that automated delivery of a final system. And if we take a look at how we're actually doing the automated implementation of that compliance, it's important to look at how we're declaratively applying this content and these security controls for our system. So a moment ago, I mentioned ComplianceAsCode, and that's the main mechanism by which we are creating security content, this SSG, in the format of OpenSCAP. And this OpenSCAP can be used now as content to drive other security compliance automation. It's the declarative statement, essentially, of what you want to do to secure and harden your systems. And we can use tools like an OpenShift, Red Hat's platform service technology, to apply that security compliance. We provide in OpenShift, for example, a compliance operator that is a Kubernetes native feature of OpenShift that continuously scans your entire infrastructure using the APIs available through Kubernetes and the underlying platform technology. And we use Red Hat CoreOS as a API-centric operating system to also introspect the underlying hosts and operating system and network systems. And then we can provide and summarize the compliance state of the underlying system and continuously provide that. So the operator will run continuously and report back the results using native Kubernetes API objects. At the moment, we don't actually provide output via OSCAL format, but we do provide standard APIs that can be used to reconstruct the compliance assessment portions of the OSCAL reporting for the purposes of submitting that to a FedRAMP authorization. And of course, we can do this not just for a single platform provided via OpenShift, but across any hybrid infrastructure using our advanced cluster manager as well, using the same OpenSCAP content and governance policies that specify how these individual systems might vary and be applied, that content might apply. We can use advanced cluster manager to lay down the same infrastructure, apply those same controls using, again, the compliance operator, and then probe the compliance against that policy and those governance policies using those APIs and the systems that are reporting back to the cluster manager. And then also then by policy, deploy and configure workloads that are compliant with those policies and will continue to maintain your security baseline. And the advanced cluster manager is a tool that can apply all this across hybrid environments. And makes it very easy to deploy these services in a FedRAMP and using a FedRAMP security baseline. And I invite you, after the conclusion of this, to take a look at a pre-recorded video that'll be provided in the resource links, where you can take a look at how we can deploy a cluster using these security baselines and the corresponding hardening and compliance structures, as well as creating applications and then monitoring and asserting compliance to a specific security policy, including tailored CAS, NIST 853, or FedRAMP baselines. And all this driven by that ComplianceAsCode. Now, you may be asking yourself now, how can I get started? Again, open source. So I also implore you to take a look at ComplianceAsCode, which is our open source community for building this security content where you can create those custom tailored profiles. And Red Hat, of course, is there to help. So we have experts, including myself, that can help guide you in that process. My contact information is available for you on this slide. And Michael Epley at redhat.com if you want to contact me via email. Or you can take a look at some of the other content and resources, including some links to the FedRAMP automation and accreditation automation processes that I'm going to provide in that same resource page. So I appreciate your time and thank you again for this talk.